Yeah, so hello guys. So we have I've started the recording. So we'll start with session 7. So the topic for session 7, as I said, it's access modifiers, encapsulation, and collection framework overview. So one second, let me share my screen. Okay. So guys, let me share my Eclipse window so that we can start with actual coding. Okay. What I'll do is I can close all. Okay, so guys, till now, all the sessions which we were actually not much interested in terms of what access modifiers we are using, right? So basically, if you see, when we had created bike class and when we had created animal class, right? So we were using string name and we have defined variables in any classes and all those things, but we were not much focused on other stuffs like what are the access modifiers and are we trying to set this particular variable as private or public or protected. So we were not much into this. As I said, we'll be looking those in today's session. Okay, so now let me create one new class. Okay, we'll simply create. So we had created a class. So let's try and create a class as, let's say, it was the last time we saw vehicle class, right? So let's say vehicle test is a class. Okay, so vehicle test is a class. So now within this particular class, there are various ways wherein I can have a variable. So now, how do you declare a variable? We have seen this in our previous topic. So let's assume if you want to declare a variable, let's say an integer variable. So you can simply write, so integer number is equal to, let's say 10. Okay, integer number is equal to 10. Now let's see public. I'll make it public. Okay, so these are all access modifiers. In Java, we call this as access modifiers, wherein we write public, private, and protected. So let me just write this access modifiers. We have public, private, and protected. Okay, so we'll first see public. Okay, so what I have done is I have declared a variable as public. Now, when I say public means this particular variable, this particular number can be accessed from anywhere. Anywhere in the sense, from this particular class, from any of the class which is extending this particular class, from any of the class which is not extending this particular class, from any class which belongs to this package, or from any class which does not belong to this package, it belongs to some other package. Okay, but within this project, it can be accessed from anywhere. Okay, so we had this vehicle. Let's say I'll simply say one more vehicle, or I'll say string and name is equal to, let's say, Yamaha. Simple. Okay, then Yamaha. Now I'll create one more class. Let's see. Okay, so before I create one more class, let us see if I can access this particular variable over here. So let's say I'll create one method. I'll create one method. Okay. So let's say show info. I'll say show info. Now this is number. Okay. I can say number is equal to 20. Now what does this say? This says that I have a variable number and that particular variable is public. So obviously I can access that particular variable from my class, the class in which it is defined. Okay. This is the class, right? Vehicle test. So I have defined a variable over here and I can access it in the same class. Okay. This is one thing. Now I create one new class. Okay. And I'll say car. Okay. I'll say car. Now this is not extending that particular class, but I'll just simply say car. And let's see, do we have number? And okay, so 1 second, I'll just say this is extend. What was our class? Vehicle test. We are writing vehicle test. Okay, and we can say okay. Sorry. So let me first try to create a method. Okay, from here, let me first try to create a method. So I'll say a public method, and I'll say I'm trying to access number. So simple method number, and then I'll say number. Now I can modify the value of this particular variable. Okay, let's say I want to make the value as 40. Okay, so this number belongs to this particular class, and I can access the value, and I can say number is equals to 40. Now let's try this. Okay, it's giving you an error number. So you can either create a local variable, since we have removed the extension. If you say extends vehicle test, then we can say number is equals to 40. So this particular number we are accessing from a different class. Now, if I say, so this is a public. Now let's just simply keep this as a private. I'm just saying this number as a private. So now I have changed the access modifier from public to private. And still in the same class, if you see, I'm accessing this number, right? Public void show info, and I'm assigning the number as 20, and it is working fine. Okay, there is no error. But when I go to car.java, and here when I see number, it's giving you an error. That is, the visibility is not set for this particular number. This particular number is not visible in this particular scope. Why? Because when I say a number or any variable, when I say it as private, then the scope of that particular variable gets defined to the same class, to its own class. Okay. When I say a number as, when I say a field as private or any variable as private, the scope of that particular variable is restricted to the class. Outside of this class, you cannot access this particular variable. Okay. So there are some instances, there are some situations wherein you want to have a particular number or particular field, I would say, but you do not want to give access, or you do not want anyone else to access that particular variable. So in those cases, we will define the number as private. Okay. In those cases, we will define the number of private. Now, let's see one more example of protected. So when I say this is protected, okay, so again, this particular number field is protected, and I can access it from my own class. So guys, even irrespective of the access modifiers, if we are declaring a particular variable in, let's say, class A, then it has to be accessible in that particular class. I know it's obvious, right? I have declared a variable in this particular class, so every method of this particular class can access this particular variable. Now, when I go to car.java and I see number is equal to 40, there is no issue. There is no issue. It is not giving me any error or warning, right? So when it was private, it was giving me a warning saying that this particular number is not visible. But here it is not giving me an error because this particular number is protected. So when I say protected, so when I say public can be accessed from anywhere. Okay, and when I said private, okay, when I said private, simply means can be. There are a lot of people actually, guys. A lot of people are actually joining in now at this particular time. So each and every time it gives you a pop-up, and you know so I think from next time we'll have to have a fixed timing that at this particular time we can join, and then we'll close the window. Okay, this particular class can be accessed. So these variables can be accessed from own class where it is defined. And when I say protected, means can be accessed from own class, obviously, and child class. When I say protected, it means can be accessed from own class and child class and same package. Package in the sense, package we haven't covered, guys. So this is like, this particular is in Java practice. Java practice is my package. We can have multiple packages, okay? Packages we haven't covered yet, but just to give you an idea, protected can be accessed from its own class, child class, and same package. So we saw public, we saw private, we saw protected. Now, there can be one situation wherein we do not specify any value, because usually we do not specify. Sometimes we write, right? Okay, integer, let's say lucky number is equals to 10. Integer lucky number is equals to 10. Sometimes we write like this. Now we haven't defined any access modifier. So this can be one of the questions, right? If you do not specify any access modifier, then what happens and what is the scope of this particular lucky number variable? What is the scope of this particular lucky number? So it would say, if there are no access modifiers, I would say there is one more. When you do not write any access modifiers, right? When there is no access modifier, then it can be accessed within the same package. Okay, it can be accessed within same package. Okay, so guys, sometimes what happens, we can have a subclass, or you can say a child class, into different package. Let's assume there are two packages, Java Practice and Java Practice 1. And one of the subclasses of this particular vehicle test is in a different package. But still, even though it is your child class, but it won't be able to access this particular variable, because the scope of this particular variable is limited to same package where we have defined. Okay, same package only, I would say, same package only. Even though we are extending, but you cannot access this particular number. So in terms of practical, guys, if you see, you can create in different classes, and you can just try to how we can access these particular fields. It's very simple, guys. So I would not be spending much time in this access modifiers, and I know it's a basic concept, so most of the people might be aware of. But yeah, this concept, if you can just imagine, if you can just understand this basic concept, so what you can do is, to practice, I'll just give you a suggestion, like create a class, create a simple class, and create a variable, make it as public. Now try to access it from the same class, child class, and another class in the same package, and from a different package. Same goes for private. I cannot create all those classes and show you right now, but if you can try it on yourself. So when I say private, okay, so create a method. This I showed you, right? If you make over here a private, you cannot access this particular variable from any other class. Then create a variable as protected and try it out. Now there is one more thing, guys. We need to understand is what should be your first focus. Your first focus when you are actually writing a program, or you are actually defining a project, your first focus should be all your variables, you should try to make it private. Okay, your first focus should be, let's make everything private, because obviously you don't want your data members, your variables, to be accessed from outside the class, or someone else to modify this particular variable. If there are any situations wherein you have to give access to this particular variable, then there are other ways wherein we can handle this particular situation, but not by giving. So let's assume there is one class, as we have this class, right, car.java. Okay, now there is some rules, and there are some project guidelines which says that this particular car.java needs to have access to this particular variable number. Okay, so let's assume car.java is using the value of number, or it is trying to modify the value of this particular variable. So the best, I mean, not the best, but the easier approach would be just go and make this public. Okay, or you can make it protected. Okay, so the hierarchy, the sequencing goes like, first you will try to make everything as private. If you feel that, okay, there are some things which you cannot make private and your child class needs to have access to this, you can make it protected. And if at all there is something which has to be accessed from everywhere, you can make it public. Okay, so let's assume I have made this private, but someone from the other class, this particular class, wants to access this. Then how can we achieve this in Java? There are ways to achieve this. Let's say I create a variable as private, but I would create getter and setter method. I will create getter and setter method. Okay, so there are simple ways to create getter and setter. I'll use that. Go to source. Okay, and then you can go to source, and then there are ways to see generate getters and setters, and you will get all the fields for which you have to create getters and setters. So let's assume my field is number. Okay, this is a private field, and I want to create getters and setters for this field. Okay, so now I can create, let's say these will be public, right? Your variable will be private, but your methods will be public if you want to expose this into outside world. So for get number, you will just return number, and for set number, you will ask for a number, and this dot number means this particular class variable, lucky number. You will access this, and you will assign the number to this particular. When you click on this, it will take you over here, right? So now instead of directly assigning or using this particular variable number is equal to 40, I would not allow anyone to use my number. So what I'll say is, you go and you create an object, or you go and you create an object, and via object you can call my methods. Okay, so what are the methods names? So let's say get number and set number. So you can say, now say get number. Okay, you can simply say get number and access number. Okay, so let's do one thing. Now let's say we have a main method and we have vehicle test. I'll create an object. So let's name it this object is equal to new vehicle. Okay, now let's say when you say obj dot, you can get number method, and when you say get number, it will return you a number. Okay, so you can store this into number is equal to this. Okay, and then you can print number. Then you can print number. Create method get number in time vehicle. The get number is undefined for the type vehicle test. Okay, 1 second. Let me save this. Okay, so sometimes what happens, guys, when you write something, let's assume I have written a specific method over here. Okay, and when I have not saved it, then it might give you an error when you are actually accessing that particular method from some other class. So just save it, and when I run this, it's giving you the number. Okay, it's giving you the number. So guys, earlier way, what I was doing is, if I say this public, I can directly access this particular number, but I do not want people to access this particular number directly. So for them, I have created getter and setter method. So for any class, if they want to modify this particular variable, what they can do is they can simply call my method. Instead of using my variable directly, I would say you call my methods. Now say object dot set number. Okay, and you set the value as 40. This will set the value of object number as 40. Okay. So instead of creating directly numbers, like even if instead of giving access to directly numbers, I'll create a method. Okay, and using that method, people can have access to my variable. So this way I have achieved the concept wherein I am saying that this particular number is private, but you can access my particular variable. Now this is also a concept called as encapsulation. Okay, this is a concept also called as encapsulation. So the basic reason of encapsulation is that you actually want to hide data from your class, right? You do not want everyone or each and every other class to mix with your data, to play with your data, right? So the main motto of encapsulation is you want to hide your variables or your data from other. And so just to give you an encapsulation was also one of the topics. So just to give you an example, like, so encapsulation is one of the 4 fundamental concepts of OOP, right? So object-oriented programming, encapsulation is one of the 4. The other 3 are obviously inheritance, polymorphism, and abstraction. Okay, the other 3 are polymorphism, inheritance, and abstraction. Inheritance we saw, right? Polymorphism also we saw. Abstraction we saw a bit of abstraction as well. So encapsulation in Java is a mechanism, right? Wherein we are trying to wrap the data. As I showed you, we are not giving access to our variables directly. We are trying to wrap it up, and now we have created methods like getters and setters, and you can use those particular methods in terms of like data hiding, you can say. Okay, guys. So first two topics were mostly related to the access modifiers and related to access modifiers and encapsulation. So I hope these topics are clear. Only then we can move ahead with the next topics. Okay, are we clear with this? Since we have a lot many participants, guys, so we cannot have directly question and answer sessions over here. We'll have a separate call for that, wherein if we have doubts, we can cover it over there. So this is access modifiers. Okay, we can create private, protected, and public. And if we do not define anything, then it has to be within same package. Okay.